Story 1. The Haunted Library. Emma loved books. As a new librarian in a small town, she relished her job at the local library, an old building with creaky floors and towering bookshelves. One evening, she stayed late to catalog some new arrivals. The library was quiet, and the only sound was the soft rustling of pages and the occasional creak of the old building settling. As she was working, she heard a faint whisper. She looked around but saw no one. Thinking it was her imagination, she continued working. A few minutes later, she heard it again, clearer this time. It was a voice, whispering her name. Emma. She stood up and walked down the aisles, looking for the source of the voice. "Is anyone here?" she called out, but there was no reply. She returned to her desk, trying to shake off the eerie feeling. As she sat down, a book fell off the shelf behind her. Startled, she picked it up. It was an old, dusty volume she hadn't seen before. Curious, she opened it. The pages were yellowed and brittle, filled with handwritten notes in the margins. As she flipped through the book, she noticed that some of the notes were in different handwriting, as if multiple people had written in it over the years. The last note caught her eye. "Don't trust the whispers." Just then, she felt a cold breath on her neck. She spun around, but there was no one there. The whisper came again, louder and more urgent. "Emma, help me!" Terrified, she grabbed her things and left the library. The next day, she asked her co-workers about the book, but no one knew anything about it. Determined to find answers, she did some research and discovered that the library was rumored to be haunted by the spirit of a former librarian, Sarah, who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. Sarah was known for her love of books and her dedication to the library. According to the legend, she vanished one night while working late, and her body was never found. Some believed she was still there, trapped between the pages of the books she loved so much. Emma decided to confront the spirit. That evening, she stayed late again and brought the book with her. She placed it on her desk and said aloud, "Sarah, if you're here, please show yourself." The temperature in the room dropped, and the whispering began again. The pages of the book started to turn on their own, stopping at a page with a single chilling message written in bold letters. "Find my body." Emma followed the clues left in the book, leading her to the basement, a place she had always avoided because of its dark, creepy atmosphere. In a hidden corner, she found a small, locked room. Inside, she discovered Sarah's remains. With Sarah's body finally found, the whispering stopped. Emma called the authorities, and Sarah was given a proper burial. The library felt lighter, the oppressive feeling gone. Emma continued her work, knowing she had helped a restless spirit find peace. Story 2. The Cabin in the Woods. Jason and his friends decided to take a weekend trip to a remote cabin in the woods. They were excited to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and enjoy some time in nature. The cabin was old but cozy, surrounded by dense forest and far from any signs of civilization. The first night, they sat around the fireplace, telling ghost stories and laughing. The wind howled outside, adding to the spooky atmosphere. As the night wore on, they decided to call it a night and headed to their respective rooms. Jason woke up in the middle of the night to a strange sound. It was a soft tapping, like someone knocking on the window. He got up and looked outside, but saw nothing but darkness. Shrugging it off as a branch hitting the window, he went back to bed. The next morning, he told his friends about the noise, and they all laughed, teasing him about being scared. They spent the day hiking and exploring the woods, but Jason couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night, the tapping returned, louder and more insistent. Jason looked out the window again, but saw only shadows. Suddenly, a face appeared in the glass, pale and ghostly. He stumbled back, heart pounding, but when he looked again, it was gone. He woke his friends and told them what he saw. They decided to search the area around the cabin, but found nothing. Nervously, they returned inside and locked all the doors and windows. They tried to stay awake, but exhaustion eventually overtook them. Around midnight, they were jolted awake by a loud banging on the front door. The sound was relentless, echoing through the cabin. They huddled together, too scared to move. The banging continued, and then they heard a voice, low and menacing. "Let me in." Jason mustered the courage to approach the door. "Who's there?" he shouted. The voice replied, "Let me in, or I'll come in anyway." Terrified, they decided to barricade the door with furniture. The banging grew louder and more frantic, and they could hear scratching at the windows. Jason peeked through the curtains and saw the same pale face, grinning wickedly. Desperate, they made a plan to escape. Jason and his friends grabbed their things and ran out the back door, sprinting into the woods. They didn't stop running until they reached the nearest town, breathless and shaken. They reported the incident to the local authorities, who investigated the cabin. They found no signs of anyone having been there, but the door and windows were severely damaged. The locals told them of an old legend about a man who went mad and disappeared in those woods, said to haunt the area, seeking victims to drag into the forest.